Hare Krishna. Hare
devotee
Krishna,
the
Pradesh Mataji.
conversation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Welcome all of you. Thank you for joining this Saturday's Srimad Bhagavatam session. So today we'll be discussing from 4th Canto, 23rd chapter, second part. There are 39 verses. So from 19th till 39 we'll discuss. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayesha vadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of God, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable right. So we'll first take just one verse and then we'll discuss the whole part 2. So I've selected verse number 31. Yaidam samahat punyam shraddaya vahitah pate pathet shravayet shruniyad vapi saprato padavim yat yaidam sumahat punyam shraddaya vahitah patet shravayet shruniyad vapi saprato padavim yat. Word to word meaning synonymous. Yeah, anyone, idam, this, sumahat, very great, punyam, pious, shraddaya, with great faith, avahita, with great attention, patet, reads, shravayet, explains, shruniyat, hears, va, or, api, certainly, saha, that person, prutoho, of King Prithu, padavim, situation, yat, attains. Translation and purport by Divine Shirpapa ki jai. Please hear the translation and purport. Any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attain the very planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. In other words, such a person also returns home to the Vaikuntha planets, back to Godhead. Purport. In the execution of, please hear the purport, very beautiful. So very practical, Prabhupada is given. In the execution of devotional service, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnoho is especially stressed. This means that bhakti or devotional service begins by hearing and chanting about Vishnu. When we speak of Vishnu, we also refer to that which relates to Vishnu. In the Shiva Purana, Lord Shiva recommends Vishnu worship to be the topmost worship. And that better than Vishnu worship is worship of the Vaishnava or anything that is related to Vishnu. The fact is explained herein that hearing and chanting about a Vaishnava is as good as hearing and chanting about Vishnu. For Maitreya has explained that anyone who hears about Prithu Maharaj with attention also attains the planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. There is no duality between Vishnu and the Vaishnava. And this is called Advaya Jnana. The Vaishnava is as important as Vishnu. Therefore, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura wrote in his Gurvashtaka, Sakshadharitven samasta shastre uktastatha bhavyateva sadbihi kintu prabhorya priyeva tasya vande guru shri charanaravindam. The spiritual master is honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and is followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari. The Supreme Vaishnava is the spiritual master, and he is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said that sometimes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to chant the names of the gopis. Some of the Lord's students tried to advise him to chant the name of Krishna instead. But upon hearing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very angry with his students. The controversy on this subject reached a point that after this incident, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyasa because he was not taken very seriously in his grihastha ashrama. The point is that since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted the names of the gopis, worship of the gopis or the devotees of the Lord is as good as devotional service rendered directly to the Lord. It is also stated by the Lord himself that devotional service to his devotees is better than service offered directly to him. Sometimes the Sahajya class of devotees are interested only in Krishna's personal pastimes to the exclusion of the activities of the devotees. This type of devotees is not on a very high level. One who sees the devotee and the Lord on the same level has further progressed. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Gyantimara Andasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Avishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Mahyam Dadati Subhadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagara Jatam Sagara Raghunathamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Saganlita Shri Vishaka Vithamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpata Rubescha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yanta Pravishya Mamavacha Mima Prasuptam Sanjeevayate Akila Shakti Dharasvadhamna Anyam Chahasta Charana Shravanatogadin Prana Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Mukam Karoti Vacha Bangam Nageti Net Kripatamam Namo Vishnu 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 Tamashko Sam Jai Shri Krishna. So Jagannath Bali Mai ki jai, Narasimha Bhagwan ki jai, Panchatattva ki jai, Shri Goswami ki jai, Guru Parampara ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev Hari. So Hare Krishna, Prabhu's Matajis. I welcome all of you for this Srimad Bhagavatam session. And thank you for keeping the appointment with Krishna today, 12th of July 2025. So we'll be discussing from 4th Canto, 23rd chapter, the second half, that is starting from verse number 19 to 39. So this chapter is entitled Maharaj Prithu's Going Back Home. See, this Prithu Maharaj chapter, it started from the 15th, 4th Canto, from 15th chapter. So this is the last, 23rd is the last chapter of this Prithu Maharaj episode. See, the beginning, Prabhupada says, in the purport, Maharaj Prithu was one of the Shakti Avesha incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he appeared on the surface of the earth to execute the orders of the Supreme Lord. Okay. So as it is given in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all the planets. And most interesting thing is that he is always anxious to see that in each and every planet, the living entities are happily living and executing their duties. That is his position. See, as soon as there is some discrepancy in the execution of duties, the Lord appears on the earth. As we see in 4.7 Bhagavad Gita, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bhavata. Now, since there were so many discrepancies during the reign of King Vena, the Lord he sent his most confidential devotee, Maharaj Prithu, to settle things. Now, Maharaj Prithu, after executing the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and settling the affairs of the world, right? Now, Maharaj Prithu was ready to retire. And he was a very exemplary king, in his governmental administration also. And now he has to become exemplary in his retirement. See, as it is very necessary for one to become very active in family life, right? Similarly, after retirement from family life, it is necessary to control the mind and senses. And this is possible only when one engages himself fully in the devotional service of Krishna. Actually, the whole purpose of the Vedic system and social order is to enable one to ultimately return home back to Godhead. See, it is also very nice, nice thing to understand that according to the Vedic injunction, no, to live in the forest is to, Prabhupada writes in 4:30 in the fifth verse in this chapter, he says, to live in the forest is to live in the mode of complete goodness. Whereas to live in the city is to live in the mode of passion. And to live in a like a brothel or drinking house is to live in the mode of ignorance. However, to live in a temple is to live in Vaikuntha, which is transcendental to all the modes of material nature. So Prabhupada further says this Krishna conscious movement affords one the opportunity to live in the temple, which is as good as Vaikuntha. So a Krishna conscious person does not need to go to the forest and artificially try to imitate Maharaj Prithu or any great sages who used to live in the forest. Right? No need. That's why Prabhupada says in the seventh purport, there are many fools who claim that worship of Krishna began only about 5,000 years ago, after the appearance of Krishna in India. But that is not the fact. Prithu Maharaj worshipped Krishna millions of years ago. Because Prithu Maharaj happened to be the descendants of the family of Maharaj Dhruva. And Maharaj Dhruva, he reigned his kingdom, right? The Dhruva Loka for 36,000 years during the Satyuga. So unless Dhruva Maharaj's total lifespan was 100,000 years, then how could Dhruva Maharaj reign over the world for 36,000 years? So the point is that Krishna worship existed at the beginning of creation and has continued to exist throughout Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and now it is continuing in Kali Yuga. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna appears not only in this millennium of Brahma's life, but in every millennium. Therefore, worship of Krishna is conducted in all millenniums. It is not that Krishna worship began only when Krishna appeared on this planet 5,000 years ago. No. This is a foolish conclusion. And that is not substantiated by Vedic literature, Prabhupada says. And Prabhupada also mentions very nicely with regard to Maharaj Prithu going to the forest and all, right? We should therefore not be discouraged just because we cannot go to the forest and practice severe austerities. Our life is so short that we must strictly adhere to the principles laid down by the Vaishnava Acharyas and peacefully execute Krishna consciousness. There is no need to become despondent. Encouraging words by Prabhupada. So this Krishna conscious movement is therefore very safe and easy. We have only to execute the order of the Lord and fully surrender unto Him. We have only to execute the order of the spiritual master. Preach Krishna consciousness and follow the path of the Vaishnavas. The spiritual master represents both Lord Krishna and the Vaishnavas. Therefore, by following the instructions of the spiritual master and by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, everything will be all right. Oh, encouraging words, right, by Prabhupada. So if the devotee adheres strictly to the orders of the spiritual master and follows the rules and regulations and chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it should be concluded that he is already at the Brahma Bhuta stage. As it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam chayo avvabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati teitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That is, one who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at one transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. See, at present, we have contracted a material body, material mind, and material intelligence. But when we become free from these material conditions, then our spiritual body, spiritual mind, and spiritual intelligence will become manifest. So in that transcendental state, the devotee attains all the benefits of karma, jnana, and yoga. Prabhupada says in 423.11 purport, although he never engages in fruitive activities or empirical speculation to attain mystic powers, automatically mystic powers appear in his service. So a devotee, no, he does not want any kind of material opulence. But such opulence appears before him automatically. He does not have to endeavor for it. Because of his devotional service, he automatically becomes Brahma Bhuta. See, we learn from Maharaj Prithu, right? In the 13th and 14th verses, he performed Kundalini Yoga, right? Sitting in a special posture called Muktasana.
देखो ये बताइए बच्चे,
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
यो व्यक्ति तो खुल गया, हमें समझ में ना आता।
Please mute yourself, please. Krishna. So, he was performing Kundalini Yoga, right? Sitting in a special posture called Muktasana, which facilitates directing one's life energy upward, penetrating 6 material energy centers, chakras, by yogic force, which we had already discussed in the last week, right? So that's why Prabhupada says, those who are in Krishna consciousness can return to Godhead without even practicing the Muktasana process. This is so because Bhakti Yoga, that is practicing Bhakti Yoga, is always situated on the Brahma Bhuta stage. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpati. That is 14.26, where Krishna is Brahma Bhuyaya, right? So one who engages in full devotion service, right? That is, he'll come to the level of Brahman. See, in 4th Canto, 30th chapter, verse number 20, the actual experience of Brahma Bhuta is given, where Navyavad Hridaye Yajño Brahmaitad Brahmavadibihi Namuhyanti na shochanti Narshyanti yato gataha. Always engaging in the activities of devotional service, devotees feel ever increasingly fresh and new in all their activities. So the all-knower, the super soul within the heart of the devotee makes everything increasingly fresh. So this is known as the Brahman position by the advocates of the absolute truth. So in such a liberated stage, Brahmabhuta, one is never bewildered, nor does one lament or become unnecessarily jubilant. This is due to the Brahmabhuta situation. So Prabhupada says we can be rest assured with Prabhupada's conclusion, right? In the 14th verse, he says, consequently, a devotee need not feel sorry for not having practiced the Kundalini chakra or not penetrating 6 chakras one after another. No need. That's why in the 19th verse, the queen of Maharaj Prithu, that is wife of Prithu, the name is Archi. She followed her husband into the forest. So since she was a queen, no, her body was very delicate. So she did not deserve to live in the forest. She voluntarily, right? No, because Prithu Maharaj's wife was queen and also daughter of a king, she never experienced walking on the ground. For queens used to never come out of the palace. They certainly never went to the forest. So tolerate all the difficulties of living, right? So in the Vedic civilization, there are hundreds of similar examples of such renunciation on the part of queens and dedication to the husband. See, the married life, most of the problems are solved when the husband remains an unflinching devotee and the wife remains chaste to the husband and follows him 100%. But neither of these prove true in most of the cases. And what is the result? Quarreling and bickering and whatever it is, right? So the problem can be solved even if one of the parties lives up to the expectation. That is, either the husband remains a fixed devotee or the wife follows her husband 100%, irrespective of whether he is a devotee or not. But it's not like that, right? Because the expectation is always upon the other party to take the first step, right? That is, the husband wants the wife to be surrendered to him 100%. And the wife, first of all, wants the husband to prove, if at all, he deserves to be followed. So the solution is very simple. Look at the 3 fingers pointing at us while we point the one finger at the others. Like this we point, right? 3 here. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, look within. He says, look within, amend yourself rather than prey upon the frailties of others. So if we follow this instruction, we can definitely find a positive solution to this puzzle. See, Shastras are full of examples of ideal husbands and wives. Prabhupada gives very following examples in 4:23:19 verse. Lord Ramachandra went to the forest in compliance with the order of his father, Maharaj Dasharath. But Mother Sita was not so, she was not ordered to go. However, she voluntarily accepted the path of her husband. Similarly, Gandhari, wife of King Dhritarashtra, she also followed her husband into the forest. So being the wives of great personalities like Prithu Maharaj, Lord Ramachandra, Dhritarashtra, these were ideal chaste women. Such queens also instructed the general people by showing them how to become a chaste wife and follow the husband in every stage of life. That's why in the 20th verse says, now, although uh, wife of Prathumara Archie, she was not accustomed to such difficulties, but she followed her husband in the regulative principle of living in the forest like great sages. So she lay down on the ground, ate only fruits, flowers, and leaves. Because she was not fit for these activities, she became frail and thin. And because of the pleasure she derived in serving her husband, she did not feel any difficulties. So nice, right? So the verse in the 20th verse says that a woman's duty or religious responsibility is to serve her husband in all conditions. See, in Vedic civilization, Prabhupada says, a man is taught from the beginning of his life to become a brahmachari, then grahastha, then vanaprastha, then sannyasi. And the wife is taught just to follow the husband strictly in all conditions of life. See, after the period of brahmacharya, a man accepts a householder's life. And the woman is also taught by her parents to be a chaste wife. So when a girl and boy are united, both are trained for a life dedicated to a higher purpose. The boy is trained to execute his duty in accordance with the higher purpose of life, and the girl is trained to follow him. So the chaste wife's duty is to keep her husband pleased in household life in all respects. And when the husband retires from family life, she is to go to the forest and adopt the life of Vanaprastha or Vanavasi. So at that time, the wife is to follow her husband and take care of him, just as she took care of him in householder life. But when the husband takes the renounced order of life, namely sannyasa, the wife is to return home and become a saintly woman, setting an example for her children and daughters-in-law and showing them how to live a life of austerity. See, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, his wife Vishnu Priya Devi, although only 16 years old, also took the vow of austerity due to her husband's leaving home. You know what she did? Wife of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, she chanted her beads, counting her. After finishing one round of chanting, she collected one grain of rice. In this way, as many rounds as she chanted, she would receive the same number of rice grains, and from that she will cook and take prasad. This is called austerity. Even today in India, widows or women whose husbands have taken sannyas follow the principles of austerity, even though they live with their children. So Prithumara's wife, Archie, was very steadily determined to execute the duty of a wife. And while her husband was in the forest, she followed him eating only fruits and leaves and lying down on the ground. See, since a woman's body is considered more delicate than a man, right? Queen Archie became very thin, right? So when one engages in austerities, his body generally becomes lean and thin. Prabhupada says becoming fat is not a very good qualification in spiritual life. Because a person who is engaged in spiritual life must reduce the comforts of the body, namely eating, sleeping, mating, to a minimum. So although Queen Archie became very thin from living in the forest according to regulatory principles, she was not unhappy. Very important point. She was not unhappy. For she was enjoying the honor of serving her great husband. So when Queen Archie saw that her husband, who had been so merciful to her, right, she no longer showed symptoms of life. She was not at all worried. No, she didn't find it as difficult, this austerity. So these are very important points, right? So after this queen, she executed so what happened now? Because Prithu Maharaj had gone to the forest to renunciate, to leave his body also, right? So what happened? She lamented for a little while because he was doing the Kundalini, this yoga system, no, then so that he can live his life. He was lifeless. So she saw him. So she felt, oh, now initially for a little moment she was lamenting for a little while, and then what she did, she built a fiery pyre on top of hill and placed the body of her husband on it. So this is how she executed the necessary funerary functions, and offered oblations of water. So after bathing in the river, she offered obeisances to various demigods situated in the sky in different planet systems. She then circumambulated the fire, and while thinking of the lotus feet of her husband, she entered into the flames. See, the entrance of a chaste wife into the flames of the fire of her dead husband is known as Sahagamana, which means dying with the husband. This system of Sahagamana had been practiced in Vedic civilization from time immemorial. Rupa says in the purport of 22nd, even after the British period in India, this practice was rigidly observed. But soon it degraded to such a point, even when the wife was not strong enough to enter the fire of a dead husband, relative, relatives would force her to enter. So this practice had to be stopped. But even today, there are some still solitary cases, right, where a wife will voluntarily enter the fire and die with her husband. So even after 1940, we personally knew of a chaste wife who died in this way. That purpose writes that purport 22nd. So after this brave act performed by chaste wife Archie, wife of King Prithu, many thousands of wives of the demigods, along with their husbands, offered prayers to the queen, for they were very much satisfied. At that time, the demigods were situated on the top of Mandara hill, and all their wives began to shower flowers on the funeral pyre and began to talk among themselves. Then the wives of the demigod, they started speaking. So what they were telling, in the 25th verse, they say, all glories to Queen Archie. We can see that this queen of the great King Prithu, emperor of all the kings of the world, has served her husband with mind, speech, and body exactly as the goddess of fortune serves Supreme Personality of God, Yajnesha or Vishnu. So in the 25th verse, right, all glories to the king, that's what say. Purport, Prabhupada says, he enlightens us upon the beautiful point that the wife should try to serve husbands personally to please them. Prabhupada quotes the example of Krishna and Rukmini. See, when Lord Krishna was ruling over Dwarka, Queen Rukmini was the chief of all the queens, used to serve Lord Krishna personally, in spite of having many hundreds of maid servants to assist her. Similarly, the goddess of fortune in Vaikuntha planets also serves Narayana personally, although there are many thousands of devotees prepared to serve the Lord. See, nowadays everything is machinized. Food comes from the hotel, or the appointed cook prepares the food. Clothes are washed by the machine. Household activities are done by the servant maids. And the earned salary goes to the doctors and physiotherapists. Husband neither stays at home nor enlightens himself with some shastric knowledge. An unwanted teacher called TV rules the home. The result is demoniac future generation. Who is to be blamed? Correct. Who is to be blamed? Ourselves. So the wives of the demigods, they say, just see how this chaste lady Archie, by dint of her inconceivable pious activities, is still following her husband upward as far as we can see. So I'll share the purport of this 26th verse. Very beautiful. See, purport. Both Prithu Maharaj's airplane and the airplane carrying Queen Archie were passing out of the vision of the ladies of the higher planetary systems. So these ladies were simply astonished to see how Prithu Maharaj and his wife achieved such an exalted position. Although they were the wives of the denizens of the higher planetary system, and Prithu Maharaj was an inhabitant of an inferior planetary system, Earth, the king, along with his wife, passed beyond the realms of demigods and went upward to Vaikuntha Loka. So the word urdhvam, upward, is significant here. For the ladies speaking were from the higher planetary systems, which include the moon, sun, and Venus, up to Brahmaloka, highest planet. But beyond Brahmaloka is the spiritual sky. And in that spiritual sky, there are innumerable Vaikuntha Lokas. Thus, the word urdhvam indicates that the Vaikuntha planets are beyond or above these material planets. And it was to these Vaikuntha planets that Prithu Maharaj and his wife were going. This also indicates that when Prithu Maharaj and his wife Archie abandoned their material bodies in the material fire, they immediately developed their spiritual bodies and entered into spiritual airplanes, which could penetrate the material elements and reach the spiritual sky. Since they were carried by two separate airplanes, it may be concluded that even after being burned in the funeral pyre, they remained separate, individual persons. In other words, They never lost their identity or became void, as imagined by the impersonalists. So the ladies in the higher planetary systems were capable of seeing both downward and upward. The demigod's wives, So when they looked down, they could see that the body of Prithu Maharaj was being burned and that his wife Archie was entering into the fire. And when they looked upward, they could see how they were being carried in two airplanes to the Vaikuntha Lokas. So all of this is possible simply by Durvi Bhavyena Karmana, inconceivable activity. Prithu Maharaj was a pure devotee, and his wife Queen Arichi simply followed her husband. Thus, they can both be considered pure devotees, and thus they are capable of performing inconceivable activities. So, such activities are not possible for ordinary men. Indeed, ordinary men cannot even take to the devotional service of the Lord, nor can ordinary women maintain such vows of chastity and follow their husbands in all respects. A woman does not need to attain high qualifications, but she simply follows in the footsteps of her husband, who must be a devotee. Then both husband and wife can attain liberation and are promoted to the Vaikuntha Lokas. And this is evinced by the inconceivable activities of Maharaj Prithu and his wife. Such beautiful understanding, right? Very nicely given. That's why in the 27th verse, it says, in this material world, every human being has a short span of life. But those who are engaged in devotional service go back home, back to Godhead. For they are actually on the path of liberation. For such persons, there is nothing which is not available. Again, beautiful purport. Because everything is almost self-explanatory, very beautiful. I could not leave out any of the purpose so beautifully. But within the time span, we'll try to cover. See, in Bhagavad Gita 9.33, Krishna says, Anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajasvama. See, the Lord here declares that this material world is full of miseries, asukam. At the same time, it is very flickering, anityam. Therefore, one's only duty is to engage himself in devotional service. So this is the best end to which human life can be put. So those devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord achieve not only all material benefits, but also spiritual benefits. For at the end of the life, they go back to Godhead. So their destination is described in this verse as Bhagavat Padam. The word Padam means abode, and Bhagavat means the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the destination of the devotees is the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in this verse, the word Naishkarmyam, which means transcendental knowledge, is also significant. Unless one comes to the platform of transcendental knowledge and offers devotional service to the Lord, one is not perfect. Generally, the process of jnana, yoga, and karma are executed life after life before one gets a chance to render pure devotional service to the Lord. Please hear that very rapt attention. So this chance is given by the grace of a pure devotee. And it is in this way only that one can actually attain liberation. See, in the context of this narration, the wives of the demigods repented because although they had the opportunity of a birth in a higher planetary system, where lifetime spanning millions of years, all material comforts, they were not as fortunate as Prithu Maharaj and his wife, who were actually surpassing them. In other words, Prithu Maharaj and his wife, they, they scorned the promotion to higher planetary systems and even to Brahmaloka because the position which they were attaining was incomparable. In Bhagavad Gita 8.16, the Lord affirms, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna. From the highest planet in the middle world to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. In other words, even if one goes to the highest planet Brahmaloka, he has to return to the miseries of birth and death. That's why in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita 9.21, Lord Krishna says, Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam, kshine punya martya lokam vishanti. When they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, after exhausting the results of pious activities, one has to come again to the lower planetary systems and begin a new chapter of pious activities. It is therefore said in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.12, Nashkarmyam api apchuta bhava varjitam. The path of liberation is not at all secure unless one attains the devotional service of the Lord. Very nice point. The path of liberation is not at all secure unless one attains the devotional service of the Lord. Even if one is promoted to the impersonal Brahmajyoti, he runs every chance of falling down into this material world. If it is possible to fall down from the Brahmajyoti, which is beyond the higher planetary systems in this material world, then what can be said of the ordinary yogis and karmis who can only be elevated to the higher planetary material planets? Thus, the wives of the denizens of the higher planetary systems did not very much appreciate the results of karma, jnana, and yoga. So, very important points, right? That's why the 20th verse also, any person who engages himself within this material world in performing activities that necessitate great struggle and who, after obtaining a human form of life, which is a chance to attain liberation from miseries, undertakes the difficult tasks of fruitive activities, must be considered to be cheated and envious of his own self. That's what Prabhupada says in the first line. In this material world, people are engaged in different activities simply to achieve a little success in sense gratification. So, karmis are engaged in performing very difficult activities. They open gigantic factories, huge cities, scientific discoveries, right? So, they are engaging in performing very costly sacrifices in order to promote to higher planetary systems. And yogis are engaged in similar goal by accepting very tedious mystic yoga, right? Gyanis, philosophical speculation. So in this way, they are in different activities, but ultimately they go maximum in the material world only, they will go up to the Brahmaloka and again they have to come back. Or the Brahma Jyoti, right? So they will not go beyond, just like Prithu Maharaj and his wife has gone. So one has to cross this. So it is, so that's why when one wants to cross large ocean, it requires a strong boat. So this human form of life is a good boat by which one can cross the ocean of the science. So he says, in the human form of life, one can obtain the guidance of a good navigator, that is the spiritual master. One should have a spiritual master. One also gets a favorable wind by the mercy of Krishna, and that wind is the instructions of Krishna. The human body is the boat. Instructions of Lord Krishna are the favorable winds. And the spiritual master is the navigator. The spiritual master knows very well knows how to adjust the sails to catch the winds favorably and steer the boat to its destination. If, however, one does not take advantage of this opportunity of coming under Guru, one wastes the human form of life. Wasting time and life in this way is the same as committing suicide. So now in the 29th verse, Maitreya Muni is telling, he's continuing, giving to Udra, my dear Udra, when the wives of the denizens of heaven were thus talking amongst themselves, Queen Archi reached the planet which her husband Maharaj Patu, topmost self-realized soul, had attained. So she also attained. So both of them went together. See, according to Vedic scriptures, a woman who dies with her husband or enters into the fire in which her husband is burning also enters the same planet her husband attains. In this material world, there is a planet known as Pati Loka, just as there is a planet known as Pitraloka. But in this verse, the word Pati Loka does not refer to any planet within this material universe. So we should be very clearly, Prabhupada clarifies it. For Prithu Maharaj, being the topmost among self-realized souls, certainly returned home back to Godhead and attained one of the Vaikuntha planets. Queen Archi also entered Pati Loka. But this planet is not in the material universe, for she actually entered the planet which her husband attained. In the material world also, when a woman dies with her husband, she again unites with him in the next birth. Similarly, Maharaj Prithu and Queen Archi united in the Vaikuntha planets. In the Vaikuntha planets, there are husbands and wives, but there is no question of their giving birth to children or having sex life. In the Vaikuntha planets, both husbands and wives are extraordinarily beautiful and they are attracted to one another, but they do not enjoy sex life. Indeed, they consider sex not to be very relishable because both husband and wife are always absorbed in Krishna consciousness and in glorifying and chanting the glories of the Lord. Very important point to understand. So according to Bhaktivinoda Thakura, also, husband and wife can turn the home into a place as good as Vaikuntha, even while in this material world. Being absorbed in Krishna consciousness, even in this world, husband and wife can live in Vaikuntha simply by installing the deity of the Lord within the home and serving the deity according to the directions of the Shastras. In this way, they will never feel the sex urge. That is the test of advancement in devotional service. Test of advancement. One who is advanced in devotional service is never attracted by sex life. And as soon as one becomes detached from sex life and proportionally attached to the service of the Lord, he actually experiences living into the Vaikuntha planets. The ultimate issue, there is actually no material world. But when one forgets the service of the Lord and engages himself in the service of senses, he is said to be living in the material world. So Maitramani is telling in the 30th verse, the greatest of all devotees, Maharaj Prithu, was very powerful. And his character was liberal, magnificent, and magnanimous. Thus I have described him to you as far as possible. So 31st verse we just saw, right? In the beginning we discussed. It's a very beautiful. He's talking about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took to sannyas, right? So the 32nd verse. Now from verse number 31 onwards till 39, you can see all benefits of hearing right from 15th chapter till the last chapter, 23rd chapter, which we are discussing now. Prithu Maharaj is full episodes. Those who read, those who hear, or make others hear or read to them, what are the falashrutis? What is the benefits? So the 31st verse we saw, right? The benefit of this is that any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself, or helps others to hear of them, he is certain to attain the very planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. In other words, such a person also returns home to the Vaikuntha planets, back to Godhead. Now the 32nd verse. If one hears of the characteristics of Prithu Maharaj and is a Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahminical powers. If he is a Kshatriya, he becomes the king of the world. If he is a Vaishya, he becomes a master of other Vaishyas and many animals. And if he is a Shudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. Purport. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is recommended that one should become a devotee regardless of one's condition. Whether one is without desire, akama, or with desire, sakama, or whether one desires liberation, moksha kama, he is advised to worship the Supreme Personality of God and execute devotional service unto him. By so doing, one attains all perfection in any field of life. The process of devotional service, especially Shravanam and Kirtanam, right, hearing and chanting, is so powerful that it can bring a person to the perfectional stage. So in this verse, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras are mentioned. But here it should be understood that the reference is to the Brahmana who is born in a Brahminical family, the Kshatriya who is born in a Kshatriya family, Vaishya is born in a Vaishya family, and Shudra is born in a Shudra family. But whether one is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, he can attain perfection simply by hearing and chanting. To take birth in a family of Brahmanas is not the ultimate finishing touch. One must have the power of a Brahmana, which is called Brahma Tejas. Similarly, taking birth in a royal family is not at all in all. One must possess the power to rule the world. Similarly, taking birth as a Vaishya is not all. One must possess hundreds or thousands of animals, specifically cows, and rule over the Vaishyas, as Nanda Maharaj did in Vrindavana. Nanda Maharaj was a Vaishya who possessed 900,000 cows and ruled over many coward men and boys. A person who is born in a Shudra family can become greater than a Brahmana simply by accepting devotional service and giving oral reception to the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. Now, 33rd verse, again another benefit. It does not matter whether one is a man or a woman. Anyone who, with great respect, hears this narration of Maharaj Prithu will become the parent of many children if without children, and will become the richest if without money. Oh, we want that now. Very nice. Materialist persons who are very fond of money and great families worship different demigods to attain their desires, especially Goddess Durga, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma. Now, such materialist persons are called Shri Aishwarya Prajatsavaha. Shri means beauty, Aishwarya means riches, and Praja means children, and Ipsavaha means desiring. So, as described in the second canto of Bhagavatam, one has to worship various demigods for different types of benedictions. Prabhupada says, however, it is indicated that simply by hearing of the life and character of Maharaj Prithu, one can have both riches and children in enormous quantities. One simply has to read and understand the history of the life and activities of Prithu Maharaj. It is advised that one read them at least 3 times. Those who are materially afflicted will so benefit by hearing of the Supreme Lord and his devotees that they need not go to any demigod. The word Suprajatamaha, surrounded by many children, is very significant in this verse. For one may have many children, but may not have any qualified children. To here, however, it is stated, Prajatamaha, that is, that all the children thus attained would be qualified in education, wealth, beauty, and strength, everything complete. Those who hear and read and of Maharaj Prathu's episode. In the 34th verse, another benefit. Also, one who hears this narration 3 times will become very reputable if he is not recognized in society. And he will become great scholar if he is illiterate. In other words, hearing of the narrations of Prithu Maharaj is so auspicious that it drives away all bad luck. Purport. In the material world, everyone wants some profit, some adoration, some reputation. So by associating in different ways with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, one can very easily become opulent in every respect. Even if one is not known or recognized by society, he becomes very famous and important if he takes to devotional service and preaching. As far as education is concerned, one can become recognized in society as a great learned scholar simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, where the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees are described. This material world is full of dangers at every step. Padam padam yad vipadam. But devotee has no fear because devotional service is so auspicious that it automatically counteracts all kinds of bad luck. Since hearing about Prithu Maharaj is one of the items of devotional service, Shravanam, naturally hearing about him brings all good fortune. So if you want good fortune, hear about Prithu Maharaj. Read the 35th verse. By hearing the narration of Prithu Maharaj, one can become great, increase his duration of life, gain promotion to the heavenly planets, and counteract the contaminations of this age of Kali. In addition, one can promote the causes of religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Therefore, from all sides, it is advisable for a materialist person who is interested in such things to read and hear the narrations of life and character of Prithu Maharaj. It's a very nice way of putting people into devotional service, right? Ask them to read only this Prithu Maharaj's episodes. They will get all the benefit. Whatever they want, they will get it from here. They can tell them we don't have to go anywhere else. Don't have to do so much of austerity, right? Simply by reading this, hearing this, and making others read all the benefits. That's why the purport, by reading and hearing the narrations of life and character of Prithu Maharaj, one naturally becomes a devotee. And as soon as one becomes a devotee, its material desires automatically becomes fulfilled. Therefore, it is recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kamo dharadhihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. If a person wants to return home back to Godhead, or wants to become a pure devotee, akama, or wants some material prosperity, sakama or sarvakama, or wants to merge into the existence of the Supreme Brahman effulgence, moksha kama, he is recommended to take the path of devotional service and hear and chant of Lord Vishnu or his devotee. This is the sum and substance of all Vedic literatures. Vedescha sarve ahameva vedyaha, 15.15 Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of Vedic knowledge is to understand Krishna and his devotees. This is the only purpose. Whenever we speak of Krishna, we refer to his devotees also. For he is not alone. He is never nirvishesha or shunya, without variety or zero. Krishna is full of variety. And as soon as Krishna is present, there cannot be any question of void. Then in 36th verse, if a king who is desirous of attaining victory and ruling power chants the narration of Prithu Maharaj 3 times before going forth on his chariot, all subordinate kings will automatically render all kinds of taxes unto him, as they rendered them unto Maharaj Prithu, simply upon his order. Purport. Since a Kshatriya king naturally desires to rule the world. He wishes to make all other kings subordinate to him. This was also the position many years ago when Prithu Maharaj was ruling over the earth. At that time, he was the only emperor on this planet. Even 5,000 years ago, Maharaj Yudhishthira and Maharaj Parikshit were the sole emperors of this planet. Sometimes the subordinate kings rebelled, and it was necessary for the emperor to go and chastise them. So this process of chanting the narrations of the life and character of Prithu Maharaj is recommended for conquering kings if they want to fulfill their desire to rule the world. So for each aspect of life, he's giving. In 37th verse, a pure devotee who is executing the different processes of devotional service may be situated in the transcendental position, being completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. But even he, while discharging devotional service, must hear, must read, and must induce others to hear about the character and life of Prithu Maharaj. That must is very important. Purport. There is a type of neophyte devotee who is very anxious to hear about the pastimes of the Lord, especially the Rasa Leela chapters in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, such a devotee should know by this instruction that the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj are non-different from the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An ideal king, Prithu Maharaj exhibited all talents in showing how to rule the citizens, how to educate them, how to develop the state economically, how to fight enemies, how to perform great sacrifices, yajnas, etc. Thus, it is recommended for the sahajya or the neophyte devotee to hear, to chant, and get others to hear about the activities of Prithu Maharaj, even though one may think himself to be in the transcendental position of advanced devotional service. We have to propagate this Prithu Maharaj's activities. So, 38th verse. So, the great Maitreya Muni continued, My dear Vidura, I have as far as possible spoken the narrations about Prithu Maharaj, which enrich one's devotional attitude. Whoever takes advantage of these benefits also goes back to Godhead, like Maharaj Prithu. So the purport, it says the word Shravayet mentioned in a previous verse indicates that one should not only read for himself, but should also induce others to read and hear. This is called preaching. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended this practice. Yare dekhe tare kaha Krishna Upadesha. Whomever you meet, simply talk with him about the instructions given by Krishna or tell him of narrations about Krishna. Prithu Maharaj's history of devotional service is as potent as narrations about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one should not make distinctions between the pastimes of the Lord and the activities of Prithu Maharaj. So whenever it is possible, a devotee should attempt to induce others to hear about Prithu Maharaj. See, we are seeing Prabhupada giving induce others, make others hear about it, some way or the other. One should not only read of his pastimes for one's own benefit, but should induce others to read and hear about them also. In this way, everyone can be benefited. So we can call someone in our homes, right? And just discuss the Prithu Maharaj pastimes in Bhagavatam. Maybe they can read each of the purports. Maybe five purports each person can read. So these episodes can be very, very useful for everyone. This way, we can attract people towards devotional service. So I think 39 is the last verse. See, we are talking about Prithu Maharaj's retirement or detachment. See, in 11.8.32, Bhagavatam, Pingala, she laments how foolishly she has tortured her own soul by not engaging herself in the service of the Lord. She says, Oh, how I have uselessly tortured my own soul. I have sold my body to lusty, greedy men who are themselves objects of pity. Thus, practicing the most abominable profession of a prostitute, I hope to get money and sex pleasure. See, the prayers of Pingala are very much applicable to us. We should not falsely think that Pingala is a prostitute and so her prayers and instructions are not applicable for us. When we honestly introspect ourselves, we will realize that we are also not much different from her. We are all blessed with BMW. Everybody has, huh? We're all very rich. We are all blessed with BMW. Body, mind, and words. We're all blessed with BMW by the Lord. So when we make proper use of this BMW, body, mind, and words, engaging our senses in His service, then we will experience bliss and also make the people around us blissful. But if we misuse our senses, then we are not displeasing Lord and people around us, but we are actually torturing our own soul. So when we don't engage ourselves in the service of the Lord, we're actually torturing our own soul. So that's what we saw in the 28th verse, right? In this chapter 4, 20 to 28. When one wants to cross a large ocean, he requires a strong boat. So it is said that this human form of life is a good boat by which one can cross the ocean of his science. And in this human form of life, one can obtain the guidance of a good behaved navigator, the spiritual master. So many times we think that people around us are the source of happiness and take shelter of them. But they themselves are in pitiable condition. So how can they help us or please us? See, a drowning man cannot save another person from drowning. So instead of running behind such false temporary shelters for our sense pleasure, we should take shelter of all the blissful, eternal Supreme Lord Krishna. See, we definitely cannot separate ourselves from this material world. Okay, it's not possible. See, we have our family, we have our prescribed duties. So my Guru Maharaj used to say, doing our prescribed duties immaculately as an offering to Krishna is also devotional service. So serving parents, taking care of children, they are all devotional service. If we neglect them, the parents and children, and do arati for Krishna, then we are not pleasing Krishna. Human life is very rare and valuable opportunity, right? But in spite of hearing these words repeatedly, our mind most of the time does not realize the importance of this, right? So only when the merciful Lord gives some jerks in life, then we come back to Krishna consciousness. So how to keep us focused always in the service of the Lord? How to avoid the pains to the soul? The answer for this is one of the very favorite verse of my Guru Maharaj. 10th Canto, 1st chapter, 4th verse, 10:1-4. In fact, he made all of us memorize along with the translation. 10:1-4. Nirvritta tarsher upagiyamanat bhavaushadachirotra manobhiramat kauttama shloka gunanuvadat Uman virajyet vina pashugnat. It says, glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. So description of the Lord are the right medicine for the condition. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? So let us all pray at the lotus feet of Guru, Srila Prabhupada and Krishna that we remember these important lessons and engage our BMW, body, mind and words, properly, both in doing our prescribed duties and sadhana for the Lord's glorification. So King Prithu, right, he was administrating so wonderfully, right? He used to say, punish the citizens. But he also rewarded some citizens. But he was also fair to all the citizens. So for Krishna, we are all equal in his eyes. But according to our level of submission, devotion, humility, and gentleness, no, he reciprocates. That is why we have ye yata mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. As all surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. See, there is one example. Supposing you have 4 children, you love all 4 of them equally. So for father and mother, actually everyone is precious. All the children are precious. Okay. But they don't treat them the same. It is different. See, according to the level of each child's surrender, you naturally reciprocate with the child. See, as a parent, you will find this very natural. If one child is always fighting with you, if the child is a big troublemaker, the parent never ignores the child. In fact, the parent spends more time on the difficult child. And if the other child is very good child, studies very nicely, and then father says sit, and he sits. Father says stand, he stands. Then we find very often the father lets the child do everything because he's obedient. But doesn't mean that the father is only carrying the troublesome child. It's only because the troublesome child needs more of the father's attention. My Guru Maharaj used to say to all of he said, when I spend a lot of time with all of you, it actually means you are more troublesome. He said, when I give more time to my disciples, actually they need more of my guidance. And for those who just come, they hear me and follow my instructions, I bless them. And they are on their way in their devotional service. So sometimes we think that, if the father gives me a lot of attention, I am the favored child. Maharaj said, it means you are the one sucking my life and blood. So we should understand, ye yata amam prapadyanti. So we should understand that each child should not compare with the other child. Otherwise, envy will come. So why Krishna is taking so much care of you and is neglecting me? This is not a mood of a devotee. A devotee always understands that whatever Krishna is giving, that is what the devotee requires. But at the same time, devotional service is so dynamic that if the son suddenly improves, the father can become very happy with the son. So it doesn't mean that we are in one position also, always. Devotional service is progressive. So this is a point to understand. So very important understanding from these various chapters. So finally, we see, right, the last translation, the first Shruti, that is 39th verse, where he says, whoever with great reverence and adoration regularly reads, regularly chants, and regularly describes the history of Maharaj Prithu's activities will certainly increase unflinching faith and attraction for the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord's lotus feet are the boat by which one can cross the ocean of nescience. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purpose of 4th Canto, 23rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaj Prithu's Going Back Home. Jai. Vancha kalpatarupecha kripa sandubhayevacha patitanam pavanebhi vaishnavam. Thank you, Guru Mataji, for giving this opportunity to glorify the Lord. Hare Krishna. If you have any questions or the takeaways from today, go ahead. Hare Krishna. So a lot of benefits. Right. Already we have got benefits by hearing today. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
It was very
Hare
nice.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank
Hare
you.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat
Krishna
Pranam.
Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you Prabhuji.